if you are not sharing that with your wife and asking her what her values are, her personal ethos, her vision, are both of your visions in alignment? And ours happen to be. But if you're doing this in a silo, as you move forward down this path, are you side by side with your spouse or not? Are you both going different directions? How do you want to show up as a man? And I think having a personal ethos also does that. And do you have a mission? Do you have a vision? Do you have your own set of core values? Do you have your own standard operating procedures, guidelines, policies, procedures? All of that shaped who we are. And so having that ability to talk with other men, to express and be honest and open, and again, another manosphere word, be vulnerable. It's a noble cause to be nice to people.
Yeah.
But is it really noble? And is it really a script that we've created for ourselves?
Excited. What's your advice or guidance to a guy that's watching this that's probably 5 years behind us, looking to make his next move in 2025? So, gentlemen, this is Frank Forman. We've known each other for 13 years now?
13 years now.
Went to grad school together. This man has some experience. We're going to dive into all things living in the fire service, entrepreneurial stuff, what it's like to be a dad in today's society. We'll dive into a couple things. But tell us about yourself. Tell us about your family.
Okay. Well, first thing, I don't look like a firefighter. And
no, you don't look like a firefighter. That's a good question.
That is actually by design. We could talk about that in a bit. A bit about myself and my family. So I spent 32 years with the Los Angeles County Fire Department, which is the second largest fire department in the country. LA City firefighters believe they're second. They're actually third largest. So I like to do a little dig towards them as firefighter humor. I'm recently retired from the fire department and decided a transition from firefighter to farmer. So within the fire service, before hitting the farming aspect of it, I was I was a medic, part of our USAR task force. We're CATF2, USA2, which for those that know, it's urban search and rescue, both FEMA and USAID components of it. Hazmat specialist, assigned our Homeland Security section. So the advantage of a small department versus a large department, there's advantages to both. The nice part about a large department with 22 battalions, well, we're down to 21 battalions now. We just merged some. No, we moved one. 22 battalions still.
22.
Is you've got opportunity to really shape the career you want, as opposed to one that you're sort of dictated by on size. So I made sure I took advantage of the opportunities that were there and truly had I'd say a fulfilling career that even though there's some negative things that have occurred, the negativity has no impact on the way I look at my career. I think part of that is also that I also recognize that those external factors don't really have a play on the way I interpret things. They're just something to navigate around and keep there. So overall, the career was phenomenal. I wrapped my career up as an assistant fire chief over our command and control division, which was where our department operations center is, our dispatch facility, field and tactical communications. And for an operations guy, as you know with FirstNet, it is a very unique and specialized world that I had no idea what I was doing. So I truly relied upon the folks that worked for me. And they told me that I apparently grew a nub out of my head that turned into a slight propeller. So I actually have a greater understanding of that realm. But second part of the question about family. So part of my vision for the future, as well as my wife's vision, was to be able to provide a homesteading type lifestyle where we can slow things down. On my podcast, which is Homestead Stories Podcast, our tagline as well as our vision is living life at the speed of nature. And that's not exclusionary of technology, it's just learning to slow things down. And that's what we've been doing the last couple of years with our place up in Montana. The issue that comes with that quite often is the starting out with something small and then figure out how can I offset some of these costs, because it's not inexpensive it's quite expensive to have this type of lifestyle. Oftentimes people enter it thinking, oh, I'm going to save money growing my own food or raising my own meat. And to be honest, it's really pricey. But the offset is the engagement with nature, the understanding of the full cycle, where your food comes from and where you put it in your mouth. But at the same time, being forced to be more mindful of the food that you're eating, and the fact that it doesn't take seconds to make, which we're so accustomed to this fast-paced life. So that is one aspect of the farm. The other is my wife and I wanted a place that our friends and our family can step away and just enjoy a bit of calm. And I think we've pretty much set that up, and we're moving forward in that direction. And every day is a definite challenge. Our dogs captured a young deer earlier today, and my wife had to put the deer down, and unfortunately one of the dogs seriously injured it. So you do have to deal with things like that.
Yeah.
But we have guardian dogs for a reason, to protect our livestock. This happened to be the first time. Normally they just run the deer off, but this time, for whatever reason, they opted to make it a little more real life. Because I've only done one video with Joel Salatin, and I don't know if you know who Joel is, but Joel's been like on Rogan 3 or 4 times. He was appointed as a special advisor to the FDA on this after the new administration. But I had him on my podcast, and we discussed like the USDA, and there's a lot of small scale farmers that don't like the USDA because we're held to the same standards that multinationals are.
Yeah.
And the intent behind, and when the USDA started was actually when supermarkets started in the 40s roughly. And so it came in to provide food safety, as opposed to food when you were shopping local. It was a local farmer, and you had these isolated, like these small scale farms that were providing meat and dairy and eggs and so forth, fruit, vegetables. But when you started doing multinationals or the large corporations, industrial agriculture, then you had mass quantities coming from multiple places. And so if one was in fact like had some type of contamination, then a lot got contaminated. You couldn't isolate where it came from. So now you're bringing all this food from one area and you're dispersing it all over. So you're actually spreading a vector, versus when you're small scale farming and you're serving just a small community, it's pretty easy to isolate whatever that may be. So, but Joel's really big on that. So I asked him just about that specifically, about how can we, a lot of small scale farmers and homesteaders want to abolish the USDA. And I don't necessarily think we should abolish with the change in the administration and the path that they're taking now is a little different. But with what you could do is, if you really want to affect change, it's work within the system. So
right.
If the USDA is solely looking at large scale, well, why not start a second branch or bifurcate it and have one that actually does small scale farming? And so I'm hopeful that he takes it there.
Do you get your own goat milk?
I do.
Cow milk?
I do sheep, and I do have cattle. Our jerseys are, we have one jersey right now that we're going to AI this summer in June probably, so that by March next year we'll have dairy production with one. I'm picking up 15 bottle babies. They're about 5 weeks old of Jersey cows coming up. We're going to keep 4. I'm picking up for 5 for some other people, and the others we're going to finish off, get off bottle baby. We have to keep them for 60 days, and then there's a large enough market people would like to buy them. So to offset my costs of driving to Oregon to pick them up.
Yep.
So yeah.
What about drinking unpasteurized milk? Is that a big deal even with?
People love it. So again, it goes back to pasteurization. I was talking to a farmer, large scale dairy, and they were talking about the safety through dilution. So you put 500 cows into one big vat, and if one is contaminated, then it's minimal because you have so much through just the volume. I don't know how that works, because my understanding of bacteria multiplies. So I don't know how it doesn't contaminate 500 gallons versus me, and where we live, In 2021, there was a law that was passed that allows for small scale farmers to do a lot. Like I can sell chicken that I raise and process myself, but it has to be up to 1,000 a year between me, and I'm not going to do 1,000 chickens a year,
Yeah.
but between me and an individual. Raw milk, raw dairy products, same thing. It's not regulated by the state. Where it is regulated, I'm allowed to have up to 5 lactating cows. And if you're looking at Jersey, between 3 and 5 gallons a day of milk. So let's just say on the high end is 5 gallons. It's 25 gallons a day of milk. The milk, raw milk, has an endless supply of people wanting to buy right now. And the demand is so high, people can't keep up with
I
it.
bet.
Yeah, but like I have my cattle are my meat cattle are actually a dual purpose cattle. It's a British white, so it's an ancestral breed that actually you can milk and get meat from. I don't really plan on milking them because I don't think they would like me touching them like that. They're friendly to me, but I don't think they want to be that friendly. My Jersey, on the other hand, Twyla, she is an A2 genetic. So when people are talking about milk, you have A2 genetics, A1, A2, A2, A1. Anecdotally, people believe the A2 is easier to digest. So folks that have an issue with lactose intolerance are able to drink the A2. You'll find in your grocery store it costs significantly more, but all of our cattle, the one that we have now and all the ones we're picking up are A2 genetics. They're also New Zealand grass-fed genetics. So we do rotational grazing with all our livestock. They don't get grains. You might get a little grain for the treat while they're milking, so they can stand there. But it's inconsequential amount. So the cattle aren't really supposed to eat grain, even though we grain finish our beef.
Yep.
We love the taste of it. We love the fat. But the small amount is just more of a treat for them. All of our meat cattle, the beef that we raise there, they never get any grain. They're just rotated. Every cow is grass-fed. It's the finishing product. And so we do not grain finish, we grass finish. And going back to the sheep, though, their milk, the Katahdin sheep, we do meat sheep, and their milk is much more tolerated by people who have lactose issues. And it really boils down to the fat molecule. So the fat is actually a smaller molecule than in cows, so it's more tolerable. Sheep milk tastes completely different than goat milk. I don't like goat milk. The sheep milk's actually pretty good.
Okay.
So will I sell sheep milk? I don't know if I haven't looked into the law on that, but I also don't plan on milking those tiny little teats. It
takes more time.
It's a lot more time. So I'd rather take my Katahdin hair sheep or meat sheep. They're hair sheep, not wool, and I'd rather daily rotationally graze them and let them have fun and enjoy life.
Man, that's the life. Living on a farm in Montana. So you've obviously seen the gamut of what our society offers us, right? So starting off in the fire service as a firefighter, working your way up there, getting to administration, and now transitioning to such a cool lifestyle of subsistence farming, being in Montana. With all of that arc of history that you've experienced, what are some of the challenges that men younger than us, fathers, are facing today that you're seeing that weren't apparent when you and I were kind of entering the field of the fire service or society in general?
Right. So that's a really good question, especially if you're specifically talking about a firefighter and family. So I think one thing that I didn't know when I got hired is that my wife, my first wife, was a single parent.
Yeah.
When I was at work, and she was a married parent when I was at home. And I think what's really difficult for a lot of young firefighters is recognizing that they may be large and in charge at the station, saving the day for the people who are having their worst day. But when they come home, that there has to be some type of break. I was fortunate, even in such a large county where we cover over 3,000 square miles, 177 fire stations. I live 6 miles from my station. And so there's the negative part about that is the ability to shift your mindset going home. Most people have a drive. They can get out of the work mentality and shift into husband mentality, father mentality. And I did not have that. And so then I recognized what I needed to do at that point is stop at the gym. So I was able to work out before getting home. It gave a complete shift of mindset, and well, we have to work out anyways. So it allowed for the physical aspect of it. Today, though, something that is very different than when I was hired is the staffing issue that a lot of fire departments are dealing with. In particular, my dispatchers, they average about 800,000 calls coming in the dispatch center yearly. We average almost 500,000 incidents a year. And they would come into work and then not go home due to staffing shortages. Our firefighters, the same thing. We're allowed to work up to 7 days in a row. They can be recalled or forced hire up to 5 days in a row. And so oftentimes what we're seeing with our men right now and women are 5 days home for a day, 5 days home for a day, 5 days home for a day.
Jeez.
We've lost a lot of firefighters to different jobs. I mean, completely different career choices, because that is not really sustainable for your personal life. And now your wife having half the time, if you're 10 shifts a month, so that half the time, or a third of the time you're at the station, and 2/3 of the time you're home. It never seems to work out quite like that, but now you're gone most of the time. And I think that's a question a lot of young firefighters need to ask themselves, or before, if they want to be a firefighter, are they willing to give up and sacrifice that much? It's a phenomenal career, typically good benefits and decent pay, and a career that provides something that's very fulfilling. But that impact on the personal life is, I think, a lot more intense than it was in the past. I was really fortunate when my kids were young. I was home if I wanted to. If I wanted to go to USAR training or hazmat training, I could do it. Guys can't even get off work to go to the training if they choose to now. So my impact to my family was minimal, unless I opted to work overtime. Then it got in there. Or if we had a strike team, if we had to go out on one of our rather large wildland fires that we get, that obviously we were gone for up to 2 weeks.
Yep.
But that was not the norm. So, but I'd say for the biggest thing right now for young firefighters is understanding the dynamic of staffing shortages. And if you work for a small department, and I'm not sure how the overtime necessarily works, or if there's minimum staffing, and but one issue we have is if somebody takes off, because we only run 3 personnel on the fire engine and 4 on a truck company, is if somebody takes off, they have to call somebody. Same thing with our paramedic squad. So when I was earlier in my career, everybody worked overtime. Society at large, as well as in the fire service, we notice now that to get somebody to work overtime is very difficult. And I think society at large is looking for the more enjoy life and personal time. And so the willingness to actually work overtime voluntarily has decreased significantly. And so those staffing shortages we had in the past weren't shortage because people were willing to work those vacant spots or time people took off work. And so we're not really seeing that right now. I have my ideas of how to fix it, but that takes a lot of money, and taxpayers don't want to pay for those changes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a true challenge. And like you said, I mean, there are opportunities that you can make money on a side job, side gig, entrepreneurial stuff to not have to take that overtime. You know, when you and I were in there, 24 hours of overtime, give me $1,000.
Oh, yeah.
Piece of cake, right?
Yeah.
What kind of things are you, now that you're retiring and moving out, what kind of entrepreneurial things are you working on? You've been able to build up this wealth of experience and knowledge. How are you leveraging that? What are you kind of doing from an entrepreneurial side now?
So it's interesting because one of the most irritating things to hear is, oh, you won't like overtime. You're going to go crazy. I'm sorry, overtime, retirement.
Right.
We're back in overtime.
Yeah.
You won't like it because you'll be bored out of your mind. Well, having a small scale farm is not boring. Also, people have said, you're having a farm, that's a lot of work. Okay, and I do follow a lot of Stoicism's principles, and one of them is always working and being productive in some way. I would say it's more of a producer mindset as opposed to a consumer mindset. So, and that also shifts into your question related to entrepreneurship. So, yeah, originally I did start a homesteading podcast with the intent to understand today's modern day homesteader. And a lot of people don't know what that is, but it's really somebody who's trying to live a little more local. Well, everyone's got a definition, but having a little more local, whether you're in an apartment or you're on 10 acres or 1,000 acres, the ability to produce something for yourself. And Joel Salatin really likes to talk about everyone should have a chicken. He's not too concerned about cats or dogs, but a chicken produces, eats your garbage and gives you a little egg. So keeping within that mindset, my entrepreneur aspect is I felt, let me get grounded. Let me produce for my family, both vegetables, fruit, eggs, potentially milk, which we are definitely. There's some folks that say every farm has to have a dairy cow, and I happen to agree with that. And then if we could raise some livestock, predominantly I was looking at just a cow, a pig, a sheep, or lamb. Problem is they're herd animals, so you need more than one. Then you start getting that little, like in this command system, the ability to scale up. So I'm going to scale up. And I felt, well, let me see if I could cost offset some of the things I'm doing. I'll increase my livestock and go from there. First off, there's no money in farming. That's the first thing. So it has to be a passion to be able to do it. And I do advocate about not following a passion for a career. Your passion is something that, in my mindset, is where you can escape to, and nobody could take it away. When it becomes work, then it's no longer really a sustainable place to maintain your passion. But within this realm of doing the homestead, farmstead, farm, whatever you want to call it, the fulfillment is, I'm going to say, is probably greater than what I was able to do within the fire service.
Nice.
There's a bit of a caveat to that, but hopefully staying in line with the entrepreneur side, I am leveraging it to some extent. I'm increased my lamb production significantly, and it's not just for cost offsetting; it's also so that I can bring some extra funds in. But I have a little greater idea or purpose behind that, and it's what I found is with a lot of farmers, they undervalue themselves. And they're undervaluing themselves, for instance, they're selling a dozen eggs for $3. And forget that they're sitting $17 a dozen right now, but they're selling for $3. But a free, quote unquote, free range carton of eggs in the grocery store is normally $6 to $7.
Yeah. $9 Ryan. Yeah.
Right, at $9, but they're trying to charge $3. And when I ask them, they're like, "Well, I don't want to lose my customer." And my thought at that point is, well, first off, they're in a scarcity mindset. They're not in a mindset of abundance. Secondly, if a customer is upset about paying $3, fine, they don't need to be your customer. Have value within what you do, the work you do, the value you're giving back to the community with that dozen of eggs that are actually healthier eggs, more nutrient-dense eggs than the ones in the grocery store. And even ask the low price in the grocery store. They're asking less, which blows me away. So on that entrepreneurial side, I'm putting together I don't know how it's going to work, but not to, in my area, not to dictate how to farm, but to get people talking, and to try to help people get past the scarcity mindset. Like, come up with a price range for beef or lamb or what have you, and say, hey, can we all try to keep it in this price range? No one's trying to take anyone's customers away. We're all trying to do something. But when you have somebody constantly undercutting, it makes it difficult for everyone else. And when my input into a hog is roughly $6.50 a pound, yet you can go to a butcher and pay $3 a pound because they're buying these pigs that really don't have a lot of flavor, that have been all GMO feed. And for me, I'm doing non-GMO corn and soy free, so it costs a lot more. I'm trying to hit a certain market, but then they're like, well, that's a lot of money when you're really not making any. So to address the entrepreneurial side, really trying to actually build that community of local farmers, small scale farmers, not the big folks, get onto the same page of what we're trying to do and why we're trying to do it, understand why they're trying to do it. That doesn't necessarily bring any money in, but at the end of the day, I'm trying to see if I can help get everyone to move away from scarcity and recognize the value they're providing the community. And then on the entrepreneurial side, hopefully make back what I'm spending. I also, because I have a couple of graduate degrees and training really in Homeland Security, emergency management, and that arena, as well as international relations. I have a consulting company that I'm starting up right now, and really mostly disaster planning and emergency management focused. We can do just about anything. I've got people I've worked with for years who are doing consulting, so if I can't do it, I easily can transfer it over to them. But that's sort of to keep just a finger in the game. That's all, just a little one. But I've developed some stuff that I think is unique in accomplishing that. And then, like everybody's an author these days. I've got like 3 books that I'm trying to write. So, but trying is the word I'm using, which I hate using the word trying, but what I'm doing is trying to identify time that I can actually write them. So 3 started, 3 at various stages, and I don't really see a rush to get them done because I'm really fixated right now on the development of the infrastructure for our farm. When that during wintertime is less likely to be inundated with outside work since there's heavy snow typically and cold. So leaving the winter months to really focus on that. So it's finding that balancing act. But yeah, so I'd say that the small scale farming, developing a market for mostly my lamb, and then working with other local farmers to try to come up with a game plan that we all can be successful in some way. And then the consulting. So yeah, try not to do too much. So when people say, "Oh, you're going to be bored," yeah, I'm not bored.
No, definitely not. No. Yeah, I mean, I think with RFK Jr. coming in as LGSS secretary, the homesteading mindset, the getting back, reverting to the mean of what we ate in the early 1900s, I think that's really going to have a resurgence. So yeah, you having your Homesteader podcast, you diving into this, I think is going to be really, inspiring.
I am working to see if I can get him on my podcast right now. I fortunately know some people that know are connected, but that position he's taken on is a little challenging and time consuming. So,
totally.
I'll keep pushing, see what I can do. Right now, the top name is Joel Salatin probably, and Justin Rhodes and some other folks, and I've interviewed all of them, but I'm going to work towards that.
Yeah,
we'll see what happens.
2 more questions for you. Whether it's being a father or, just being a man, like I said, in today's society, what's your advice or guidance to a guy that's watching this that's probably 5 years behind us, looking to make his next move in 2025? What would you recommend that they either focus on or?
Well, now you're touching on one of the books I have.
Oh, perfect.
Actually, so I created a program on finding your next, and I had a person who does mid-career professional, like consultant, helped people find mid-career professional changes, and she'd asked me, does my audience read? And I realized that firefighters, and it shifted. It was supposed to be just fire department. It shifted to firefighters, law, and military. And so I'm now reconfiguring that to be more of an online workshop with an associated ebook that goes with it. Maybe another book, but the gist of it, and it's nothing new. I mean, there's nothing new, right? It's just people taking, especially in the manosphere. There's nothing new. I would say if you took all the manosphere podcasts and everything, took all the language, combined them into my buddy ChatGPT, put an AI generated voice behind it, you're hearing the same stuff over and over again. And it's not bad stuff by any means, and that would probably get everyone mad at you or me. But it's not bad stuff. But what I've seen, man, my brain just totally blanked out. Your question. Sorry. If where we're moving, I'd like to go on tangents, as you know.
Yeah.
So I think the first thing is, and I started this about 7 years before I actually was going to retire, to put the program together. And I think this is really important for somebody to do probably 2 years before retirement. It did take about 2 years to really go through the process, and I was developing it at the time. But the issue is that once you figure out what your next is, you're like, I'm done doing this now. It's time to move on. So the last few years, I really had to promote to assistant fire chief and do some other things to get myself like fixated and focused back on where I was at the time. But I would say the first thing you need to do is identify what your purpose is. And my purpose is to serve. I spent 32 years serving the community, and so how can I serve in other ways? So it's a natural way thing for me when I'm looking at farming. Like, let me serve my community, but I also could serve other farmers, and that's bring us together, help them understand. So, first thing I feel you need to do is find your purpose in life. Identify a passion versus an interest as well.
Yeah.
And if a passion is your way of getting away, escaping, grounding, centering, or in the manosphere, it's a safe space. Okay, no one likes safe space. I think it's great, but keep that passion to yourself so you have the ability to escape the stressors. I have a friend who did hunting guide, and that was his passion. And then he never hunted on his own again for himself, and he didn't recognize it for a long time. He was always taking people out, so his passion was stolen by business.
Got it.
So he needed to find something else or change his business model. The thing after that is the fire department, the police department, and military. The people that come out of there walk around with their heads high, chest out, because they are the shit. They know whatever situation they're in, they can handle it. I find that to be somewhat misleading and a little bit misunderstanding of what we're doing. When you step out of any of these fields, do you have a mission? Do you have a vision? Do you have your own set of core values? Do you have your own standard operating procedures, guidelines, policies, procedures? All of that shaped who we are. My hair is this way on purpose now. This beard, I was 15 when I became a fire explorer. I'm 56 now. So for 40 years, I had tight, short hair, no beard, no stupid fireman mustache, even though it's,
Nope,
I don't
me neither.
understand. Yeah.
I can't grow a mustache
Yeah.
anyway.
So now, well, my mustache would never get that big anyways, but that's why I could badmouth people with the big mustaches that I'm envious of. Not really envious, but yeah. So, but I think it's really critical to understand that the way we've lived for me, in a 40-year span of time, that somebody dictated how my hair was cut. Somebody dictated how my grooming standards were. Somebody dictated time I had to be somewhere. Somebody dictated that I had to work out. Too many men and women who are retiring from the fire service or military or law enforcement may be in decent shape from their career, but then they sit, because what is getting them up in the morning? What is driving them? What do they have in place to take action and be action oriented when everything we did we left when we retired?
Yep.
So I think those are the important things: is identifying your purpose. Differentiation between passion and interest. Know what your core values are. For me, going towards stoicism, it's courage, wisdom, justice, and moderation. If anyone's interested in stoicism, Ryan Holiday is basically,
I love it.
yeah. Ryan,
Memento Mori.
you like it because Ryan's your name, but Ryan Holiday, I say that he's the gateway drug to stoicism. He's got a lot of books, really easy reading. Syntax is for today, but it's also could get into deeper books of stoicism. And I think the people that are in the fire service, in law enforcement and military, live a very pragmatic life. And the connection between stoicism and what we do it's so in alignment that when I started studying, actually I started studying November of 2018, stoicism, and it fit.
Yeah.
And those looking, this here, my left arm is tattooed, but it's wisdom, courage back here, justice, which is equity, and temperance or moderation. So
It's awesome.
a lot of people think that they can always make the right decision. I am very fallible. I will make the wrong decision a lot. So I felt the need. Some people have a challenge coin or a ring or something that helps them keep focused. I'm thick-headed, so I did my whole arm. So I always see it if I'm wearing a short-sleeve shirt. But yeah, I sort of veered off of what we were talking about. But I think it's really important to understand your values. So my value structure has really been defined by that. I think it's critical also to understand your personal ethos. And when you step away from the fire department, or the guys who wanted to be firefighters but became police officers, or the
Sad for
folks.
them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's sad that they did that, but they always have a chance to volunteer when they retire, or our military. It's how do you want to show up as a man? And I think having a personal ethos also does that. And so my personal ethos happens to be present, consistent and committed. So when I show up somewhere, am I being present? Are you and I talking right now and I'm with you, or am I playing with my phone?
Yeah.
That's really simple example because we see it every day. Am I consistent? And the consistency is critical, especially as a chief officer. The folks that work for me had to know what to expect. I couldn't be random and wild and chaotic, so I had to maintain consistency. Our family, as fathers, if you're inconsistent with your kids, you're going to have issues. And then committed. So again, whatever project I may be working on, business venture, family, you have to be, in my mind, committed to that. So it took a long time for me to develop and actually clearly articulate what my vision is for my life, what my values are, what my ethos is, my own little mission statement. Each of those came together. So I sort of made a bullet point for each one.
Yep.
And then I started writing it. I'm like, I'm the struggling overly educated firefighter that's a struggling academic. So back to Chatty G, input my stuff, help me organize my thoughts a bit, refined it to make it my words instead. And it really helped to be able to clearly define where I'm at. But as it goes for family, and the tying it to family is that I shared every bit of this with my wife. If you are not sharing that with your wife and asking her what her values are, her personal ethos, her vision, are both of your visions in alignment? And ours happen to be. But if you're doing this in a silo, as you move forward down this path, are you side by side with your spouse or not? Are you both going different directions? So a men's group that I belong to, can I plug them?
Of course.
Okay. So Ryan Mickler has the Order of Man podcast, and there's the men's group that he has under that is the Iron Council. And I've been in the Iron Council for going on 8 years now, 7 or 8 years, I don't recall. I'm one of the battle team leader mentors. So we have the group, the men broken up into roughly 15-man teams, and this is a men's specific men's group, and then the team leaders, and I'm a mentor to 5 teams. So I would tell you that going through his program, I think we average 3 years is about the average of the guys staying there. Each month is a different monthly topic, but it's really helped me to develop the words that I think are important to be able to articulate, especially to younger men, younger fathers. And that was one point I wanted to make when you asked the question earlier, but didn't really tie to it, was it's the men in the last 5 years of the career. The men in the beginning of their career, or even in the end, could benefit from something like that. But I think what's really important is to surround yourself with men. Your wife is not the person to just vomit all your problems on.
Yep.
She is looking for somebody. My wife's extremely independent, but she also wants to be my partner and to help lead in this family. And if I'm venting and all my woes, it doesn't really keep me in a position of leadership. And what it does is, though, that she has her friends that she can talk to. I have my friends I could talk to, and allows us to be able to come together and deal with the problems in the relationship. So surrounding yourself with, I don't even like to say like-minded. I prefer to be around people who I have very different opinions with, because I like to debate.
And they push you.
And they do. And the thing is, if there's somebody in your life that is detrimental, finding the wherewithal to not be around that person. And that is difficult for a lot of people. And oftentimes we're thinking of other people besides ourselves. And there's a book that came out like 6 months after my divorce with my previous wife. We divorced in the end of 2002, right at the beginning of 2003. No More Mr. Nice Guy was released. So No More Mr. Nice Guy is a book that I think also every young man and every older man should read, because it really, a lot of our problems is it's a noble cause to be nice to people.
Yeah.
But is it really noble? And is it really a script that we've created for ourselves? So being in this men's group for so long, I actually conduct a lot of the surveys to see where we are, how can we improve upon it? Is there an area that they really like? There's four key areas we really try to focus on. Are they developing and growing in those areas or not? So with that being said, one of the biggest areas is that most guys are give to the point of their detriment.
Yep.
And so that book right there, I think, for the guys that don't want to join a group or something like that, is a good place to start and hopefully move at that point to find a group of men. The difference between fire and military and police department, I think, is in the fire station, like the military, we're living together. But our downtime in the evening at a lot of our stations, there's a fire pit. And so the guys get around the fire pit and talk.
Yeah.
And so having that ability to talk with other men, to express and be honest and open, and again, another manosphere word, be vulnerable to them and be open to hearing what they have to say. Everyone has different experiences. Everyone has some place to grow, and they also have something to offer. And so there might be a person you work with that has an issue, and they don't know how to deal with it, yet you've already experienced it. So to be able to share that. So when they take it home, they can actually carry themselves in an appropriate manner, keep the emotions off to the side, and deal with it in a somewhat of a pragmatic way. So yeah, I know I went off from your overall question, but I do think it's really critical for us moving either at the beginning of our careers or at the end of our careers to make sure that we're moving with where we are in life. But at the same time, wherever you are in life, there's certain things that just because you're older doesn't mean you already got it all figured out. So that we all can benefit from.
Having a tribe of men to help guide you, not your drinking buddies from high school or college, moving forward with that. I interviewed a guy named C.B. Robertson. I think he's in Order of Fire or Order of Man.
C.B. Robinson.
Chris Robinson. He has Caffeine and Philosophy. I'll send you it. But yeah, I couldn't agree more on that. And that really leads me to my last question, called my Diamond Advice.
Okay.
And it's basically kind of like the golden rules section of a question that Graham Cochran asks on his podcast. So I'm stealing that. I'll take full credit for that. You have one daughter, two daughters?
I have one daughter, one son.
One daughter, one son. They're all grown up. They're all out of the house. They've forgotten everything you've taught them their entire life, except for one thing, one piece of advice that they'll be able to take with them to be able to move forward in the world. What is your one diamond advice that you want your kids to hold on to?
That's a really good question, and I don't think I've ever really thought about one diamond advice. I'm going to have to think about this for a second, but I do want to say one thing in that realm, to recognize that as your children do grow and are gone, that you're no longer parenting, but you're actually now moving to a different role. And that role for me, fortunately, my kids are very open. My daughter's 26 and my son's 31, that we talk very routinely because we've been able to change and having, so this, I guess, the diamond rule to fathers is don't treat your adult kids like they're children. They're adults. So there's my diamond advice to fathers. For my children is to be empathetic. And I think when you maintain empathy towards others, and not sympathy. Sympathy is completely different than empathy, but to maintain empathy towards others, you are better able to read the room. You're better able to respond rather than react to a situation, and you're better able to develop relationships. And in this life, your relationships are probably, when I teach disaster planning or just about anything topic I teach, I mention there's two key things that are always integrated, and it's your mindset and your relationships. And the relationships really depend on your ability to be empathetic to the situation where you are. And so I would say the diamond thing for them is to maintain and embrace their empathy.
Frank Forman, thanks for your time, sir.
Of course, Ryan.
This was fun.
Yeah, absolutely. The fact of having a podcast and then being on a podcast is completely different.
I know. I'll plug it. I'll link to it.
Oh, I appreciate it. I love just being able to talk with people. And I think the podcast platform allows for that. And we get differing ideas than the scripted idea.
Yes. Yeah, it's the wave of the future.
Oh, absolutely.
Got to hear everybody's story.
Yeah. Cool.
Man.
Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Of course. This is perfect. Oh, let me get my glasses now.